My mother still sets a place for me at her table. She does it without being asked. When she knows I am coming, she takes down a plate from the same cupboard she has used for 30 years, and she sets it at the long table where I ate every supper of my childhood, and she fills it with the food I grew up on. Bread she baked that morning, chicken and potatoes, and the dark gravy she makes the way her own mother made it. She does all of this with love. I want you to understand that before I say anything else tonight. There is no question in my mind, and there never has been, that my mother loves me. And yet, when I reach out to take the dish from her hand, she cannot give it to me. She has to set it down on the counter first, and step back, and let me pick it up myself. Her hand and my hand are not allowed to touch across that food. That is the rule. And tonight, I want to tell you exactly what that rule is, and where it comes from, and what it does to a family year after year after year. My name is Jacob. I grew up old order Amish. I was baptized into the church, I knelt on a wooden floor and gave myself to that life, and then some years later I left it. And because I was baptized before I left, I live under something the outside world has heard a word for but almost never understood from the inside. The Meidung, the ban, the shunning. People think it means my family threw me away. It does not mean that at all. It is something far stranger and far more painful and far more carefully constructed than that. So sit with me and let me show you what it actually looks like, one rule at a time, from inside the kitchen where I grew up. Let me start at that table. In our community, a person who has been baptized and then leaves the church is placed under the ban. Once you are under it, there is a rule about the table. A member in good standing cannot eat at the same table as someone under the Meidung. Not because they hate you, because the table, in the old Anabaptist understanding, is fellowship. To eat together is to be in communion, to be one body. And the whole purpose of the ban is to mark, plainly and physically, that the communion has been broken, not forever, they would tell you, but until you come back. So in stricter districts, when a shunned son comes to visit, they set a second small table. Or they turn a chair so it faces a little away. Or the family eats first and the shunned one eats after. In my mother's house, it was simpler and somehow harder. I sat at the end, the same long table, the same bench I had always used, but a small gap left between me and the rest of them. And the food on my side passed to me only after it had been set down and released. We bowed our heads in the same silent prayer, the way the Amish always pray, with no words out loud, just the quiet. And then they ate as a family, and I ate as something else, a guest who used to belong. That is the first thing they don't want you to know, that the shunning happens at the supper table, in the same room, with the same food, between people who still love each other. It is not a door slammed in your face. It is a hand that cannot reach yours across a bowl of potatoes. Now let me tell you about the hand itself, because the dish at the table is only one piece of a much larger rule. Under the Meidung, you cannot give anything directly into the hand of a baptized member, and they cannot give anything directly into yours. Not money, not a tool, not a dish. Nothing can pass hand to hand between a shunned person and a member. If my father needed to give me something, he set it down on the workbench, or on the seat of the buggy, or on the gravel of the driveway. And then he stepped back, and then I picked it up. And if I had something for him, I did the same. We learned to use the space between us as a kind of tray, a flat surface where things could be left and taken without our hands ever meeting. The reason is the same as the table. A direct exchange, hand to hand, is a sign of partnership, of being yoked together. The old people will point you to the scripture they read on Sunday in 1 Corinthians, where Paul writes that you should not even eat with such a one. They take it seriously and they take it literally. So the casserole my mother made cannot come from her hand to mine. It has to rest on the counter for a moment, alone, untouched by either of us, and then it becomes mine. I will tell you the exact moment that rule broke something open in me. It was a winter evening, and I had brought a few things to the house, and my mother had made too much food, as she always does, and she wanted to send some home with me. She lifted the dish, the heavy ceramic one with the chip on the rim that has been in our family longer than I have been alive. and she held it out toward me without thinking, the way a mother holds out food to her child. And then she remembered. I watched it cross her face. She remembered, and her arms stopped, and she turned, very quietly, and set the dish down on the counter, and she did not look at me while she did it, and then she stepped back, and I picked it up. Neither of us said one word about it. There was nothing to say. The rule had spoken for both of us. That is the second thing they don't want you to know, that the cruelty of the ban is not in any harsh word. It is in the small, automatic, daily mechanics of it, in the way a mother's own hands are taught to stop themselves halfway. Stay with me, because the next one is the one they punish you for telling, and it is the rule that reaches past the kitchen and into the rest of your life. If you find any value at all in hearing the inside of this world told honestly, take 1 second and subscribe and leave a single word in the comments, just the word stay, so I know there are people out here who want me to keep going. It costs you nothing and it tells me the silence was worth breaking. Now let me show you how far the ban reaches. Beyond the table and the hand, the Meidung governs business and money and travel, anything that would make a member and a shunned person partners in the world. You cannot do business with a member under the ban. You cannot lend to one or borrow from one. You cannot be a paid worker for one or hire one as your own. The word the old people use comes straight from the plough, to be unequally yoked. Two animals yoked together pull as one, and the church will not allow a member to be yoked, in money or in labor, to someone who has left. So a shunned man cannot go into business with his own brother. He cannot take wages from his own father's shop. Whatever trade he learned in that community, he has to carry it out into the English world and build it again alone, because the people who taught it to him are no longer permitted to profit beside him. And it reaches even into who can ride with whom. The Amish hire drivers, English neighbors with cars, to take them to far places a buggy can't reach. They call them Amish taxis. There are quiet understandings about a shunned person sharing that ride, where he sits, whether he pays his own share separately, so no money passes between him and the members. Small things, always small things. But each small thing is a wall, and the walls add up until you understand that the ban is not one big punishment. It is 10,000 tiny separations, each one reasonable on its own, that together make a man a ghost in the house he was raised in. That is the third thing they don't want you to know, that the shunning is not an event. It is a structure. It is built into the money and the buggy and the workbench, so that a member never has to choose, in any single moment, to reject you. The structure does the rejecting for them, automatically, all day long. Now let me take you somewhere harder. Let me take you to my sister's wedding. When my younger sister married, I was not cut out of it. People assume that. They assume a shunned brother simply isn't told, isn't welcome, doesn't come. But I was welcome on the property. I was allowed to be there, to stand in the yard, to see her in her blue wedding dress, the dress she sewed herself the way every Amish bride does, because there is no white gown in our world, only the good blue dress she will be buried in someday. I saw her married, and then I watched the parts of that day that the ban does not let a shunned man enter. An Amish wedding is a church service, hours long. And inside that service there are moments that are only for the members. There is the communion, there is the holy kiss, the heilige Kuss, the ritual greeting that the brethren give one another to seal that they are one body in the church. The men kiss the men, the women kiss the women, an old and sacred thing. And I, the bride's own brother, sat apart for those moments. The bread of communion passed down the benches and was not offered to me. The holy kiss went around the room and stopped at the edge of where I sat. I was in the room, I was in the body, and I was, in the eyes of the right, not there at all, present in the flesh and erased from the sacrament. You can stand 3 feet from your own sister on the best day of her life and be, by the careful arithmetic of the Ordnung on the far side of a wall you cannot see. That is the fourth thing they don't want you to know, that the ban does not keep you away from the great days. It lets you come and stand at the threshold of every holy thing and not be allowed across it. It would almost be kinder to be turned away at the road. There is a way back. I have to tell you that too, because if I only told you the closed doors, I would be lying to you about my own people. The Ordnung does not seal the ban forever. It leaves one door open, and it is a narrow one, and I want you to understand exactly what it asks. To come back, you confess. Not privately, not in a letter, not in a quiet word to the bishop. You confess on your knees before the whole gathered church, the entire G-May assembled in someone's home, and you kneel on the wooden floor in front of all of them, the people you grew up beside, and you say that you have sinned, that you were wrong to leave, that you submit yourself again to the church and to the Ordnung and to the authority of the bishop. They call it the kniende bekenntnis, the kneeling confession, and then, if the church accepts it, the bishop lifts the ban and the table opens again, and the hand can take the dish again, and you are restored. It is real. People walk back through that door. I have seen it. I could not walk through it, and I want to be honest with you about why. Because it is not a simple thing. To kneel and confess, I would have had to say that leaving was a sin against God, and I did not believe that. And I will not say with my mouth a thing my heart knows to be false, not even to get my mother's hand back across the table. That door is open, but the price of it is to call the truest thing I ever did a sin, and so the door stays open, and I stay on this side of it, and we both, the church and I, live with what that costs. That is the fifth thing they don't want you to know. That the ban always offers you a way home, and the way home runs straight through denying yourself. They are not lying when they say you can come back. They simply never say out loud what you would have to leave at the door to do it. And now the last thing, the one I almost did not put into words tonight. There is one place the ban bends. One mercy written into nowhere and honored everywhere. When a parent is dying, a shunned child can come. The rules that keep your hand from your mother's hand at supper grow quiet at a deathbed. It is not in any rule book I ever saw. It is older than the rule book. It is the place where the people who built all those careful walls remember, in the end, that they are mothers and fathers first. My grandmother was the one who taught me this, by living it and then by leaving me with it. When she was dying, I was allowed to sit with her, to hold her hand in mine, the thing the ban had forbidden for years, allowed at last in that small room. And she looked at me, and she was not afraid, and she did not ask me to come back to the church. She had every right to, in that moment, with all her authority as a dying elder, and she did not use it. She said, in the old Pennsylvania Dutch, that she had carried me before I could carry myself, and that whatever roof I slept under, she would know where I was. That was all. And then we sat in the quiet, the way the Amish always do with the most serious things, and I held the hand that was not supposed to touch mine, and no rule in the world could reach into that room and stop it. That is the sixth thing they don't want you to know. That underneath all of it, underneath every wall and every turned chair and every dish set down on the counter, the love never actually left. It was only buried under obedience. And at the very end, when obedience finally let go, there it still was, whole, waiting, mine. So that is the shape of it. That is what shunning actually is, told from inside one family at one table by one son. It is not hatred. I wish some days that it were hatred, because hatred you can walk away from clean. This is love and obedience braided so tightly together that the people I come from cannot tell you where one ends and the other begins. They set a place for me. They cannot take the dish from my hand. They mean both of those things at the same time, with their whole hearts, and they will until they die. I have spent years now learning to live in the gap between those two things, the plate that is always set and the hand that can never reach mine. And I have stopped being angry about it mostly because anger asks you to choose a villain, and there is no villain here. There are only people doing what they truly believe God requires, paying for it in the only currency that ever mattered to them, which is each other. I love these people. I want to say that as plainly as I have said anything tonight. I love them, and that is exactly why the silence has to end. Because the world looks at my family and sees cruelty, and I look at my family and see grief, and somebody has to stand in the space between those two pictures and tell you the truth of it. That is what I am doing here. Not accusing, not mocking, just telling you as honestly as one man can what it costs to be loved by people who are not allowed to reach you. There is more than I can fit into one evening like this. The things that happened in the years between the leaving and the deathbed. The conversations that don't survive being spoken on a platform like this. The parts of it I am still learning to put into words. I wrote all of it down, the whole story, the way it really happened. The full pages are in the first pinned comment below for anyone who needs to know they are not the only one living in that gap. Thank you for sitting in the quiet with me tonight.